For nearly a century, the Neanderthal was described as a lesser human. Low forehead, receding chin, broad shoulders, muscular frame, and instinct-driven behavior. That image lived on in textbooks, films, and even museum displays. The name Neanderthal became a slur used to insult those deemed rude, primitive, or unintelligent. This view didn't arise by chance. In the late 19th century, when the first Neanderthal fossils were discovered in Germany's Neander Valley, scientists, shaped by cultural biases and the then-dominant linear evolution theory, ranked them below Homo sapiens. Neanderthals were cast as an evolutionary dead end, a failed branch in the story of human progress. Throughout the 20th century, this was reinforced by flawed reconstructions. Ape-like faces, hunched backs, a lack of language or symbolic behavior. Early archaeological findings were not enough to challenge these misrepresentations. As a result, Neanderthals were erased from mainstream human history. They were prehistoric, but never truly human. But in the 21st century, a wave of scientific breakthroughs forced researchers to rethink everything. The first turning point came from archaeology, the discovery of advanced Mousterian tools, intentional burials, and signs of group living. Then came anatomical studies, analyses of skulls, teeth, and inner ears, all pointing to capacities for complex speech and high-level cognition. The decisive breakthrough came in 2010, when scientists at the Max Planck Institute successfully decoded the Neanderthal genome. Comparing it to modern human DNA revealed something undeniable: Homo sapiens and Neanderthals interbred, and traces of that genetic exchange still exist today. In other words, Neanderthals never truly vanished. A part of them lives on in us. AI-driven facial reconstructions, genetic data, and 3D models now paint a very different portrait. Bright eyes, large noses for warming cold air, fair skin adapted to icy climates. No longer wild beasts, but humans shaped by a different world. When combined, archaeology, anatomy, genetics, ecology, and anthropology, these disciplines are rewriting the entire story of Neanderthals. They weren't a failed offshoot. They were a parallel branch, independently evolved, successful in their environment, and at times coexisting with our ancestors. Rather than being replaced, Neanderthals lived alongside Homo sapiens for tens of thousands of years. And when their time ended, it wasn't through extinction alone, but through integration and blending into a larger human population. Neanderthals were never the shadows behind Homo sapiens. They are part of our evolutionary story. To deny them is to erase a crucial chapter in the history of humankind. Part 2. The Rise of Neanderthals. Neanderthals were not direct ancestors of Homo sapiens. They were a side branch on the human evolutionary tree, sharing a common ancestor, Homo heidelbergensis. This evolutionary split occurred around 500,000 years ago. While Homo sapiens evolved in Africa, Neanderthals developed in Europe and Western Asia, adapting to cold, harsh, and ever-changing Ice Age environments. Archaeological evidence shows that Neanderthals inhabited a vast range, from Spain to Siberia, from the Middle East to the North Sea. Their spread was not random. They moved strategically, choosing caves, access to water, and hunting grounds. Sites like La Ferracie, France, El Cedron, Spain, and Shanidar, Iraq, provide clear signs of long-term settlement, not just transient presence. They didn't live alone. Fossils of children, elders, and individuals with disabilities, along with tool and food distributions, suggest they lived in stable groups. Each group likely had 10 to 30 members, with social structures, role assignments, and possibly intergenerational knowledge transfer. Biologically, they were distinct. Neanderthals had shorter, stockier bodies adapted to cold climates, short legs, broad chests, and large noses to warm the air. Their brains were even larger than ours, averaging 1,450 to 1,600 cubic centimeters, compared to the modern human average of 1,350 cubic centimeters. Despite anatomical differences, their brain volume indicates sophisticated cognitive potential. They used Mousterian tools, far more refined than the earlier Oldowan or Herculean tools. Stone blades, hand axes, and hafted wooden spears were crafted intentionally, following standards. Many tools show signs of resharpening and reuse, revealing concepts of value and long-term function. Neanderthals were strategic hunters. Animal bones show cut marks and blunt force fractures. Tools found at hunting sites imply group coordination and efficient use of meat, skin, sinew, and bone. Evidence shows they hunted large game, bison, elk, woolly rhinoceroses, demanding planning and collaboration. They didn't just survive, they expressed culture. Some skeletons were buried with pollen, suggesting funerary rituals. Paralyzed or blind individuals lived into old age, proof of care and social support. No animal species other than humans has demonstrated such behavior. They used fire not only for warmth, but also for cooking, tool processing, and possibly rituals. Some caves contain meters-thick ash layers, signs of long-term use, not random fire-making. Though they didn't build houses like later Homo sapiens, they organized living spaces, fire zones, sleeping areas, tool workshops, food preparation spots, evidence of spatial cognition and routine stability. The accumulated data from archaeology, anatomy, and anthropology paints a clear picture. Neanderthals were not savage primitives. They were intelligent, highly adapted humans with complex behavior, surviving over 300,000 years, far longer than modern civilization. There's no evidence that they were intellectually inferior to Homo sapiens. Cultural differences likely stemmed from environmental pressures, population densities, or innovation rates, not from biological limitations. Neanderthals were not evolutionary failures. On the contrary, they embody successful adaptation to a harsh world through organization, cooperation, and human ingenuity. Art 3. DNA never lies. In 2010, a groundbreaking moment in anthropology arrived when a team led by geneticist Svante Pabo decoded the Neanderthal genome. The sample came from bones found in Vindija Cave, Croatia. After decades of excavation and preservation, ancient DNA technology was precise enough to reconstruct much of the genome of a species extinct for over 30,000 years. The result shocked the scientific world. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, had not only encountered Neanderthals, but had interbred with them. Neanderthal genetic markers are still present in the DNA of billions of people today. On average, individuals of non-African descent carry 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. Some populations in East and South Asia carry up to 3 to 4%. This means that when Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa around 60,000 years ago and entered Eurasia, they met Neanderthals, and not just in conflict. They mated, produced children, and left behind a blended legacy. Paleogenomics, ancient DNA science, not only proved interbreeding between two human species, but also allowed precise dating, geographical mapping, and frequency estimation of these encounters. This disproves the old linear replacement model, where Homo sapiens replaced others. The truth is more complex. There was interaction, integration, and continuous reshaping. Further studies revealed that Neanderthal genes influence modern human physiology, health, and behavior. Notable examples: immunity, genes related to viral and bacterial defense, especially HLA group, came from Neanderthals, helping Homo sapiens adapt to unfamiliar Eurasian pathogens. Metabolism, some alleles linked to fat storage were advantageous in cold climates, but are now associated with obesity and diabetes risks. Skin and hair, genes for lighter skin, straight hair, and body hair, adaptations to low light and cold, originated from Neanderthals. Health risks, some Neanderthal genes are associated with depression, nicotine addiction, inflammatory responses, and even increased risk of severe COVID-19. These genetic legacies show that Neanderthal influence is ongoing, affecting us tens of thousands of years after their extinction. Importantly, sub-Saharan African populations who did not interbreed with Neanderthals lack these gene segments. This provides a natural control group, reinforcing the evidence of specific interbreeding in Eurasia during early migrations. Recognizing Neanderthal DNA in modern humans has permanently changed our view of human evolution. Neanderthals were not a lost, vanishing species. Instead, they continue to live within our cells, biology, and behaviors. With our DNA sequencing technology, this part of our story would have been lost. What once seemed mythical, interbreeding between human species, is now scientific fact. Genetics has recovered memories that oral history could never preserve. Bones may be silent, but genes still speak. Part 4. Archaeology speaks. Archaeological evidence has played a central role in redefining the Neanderthal. No longer just bones or genes, but material traces of behavior, social structure, and symbolic thinking. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, a discovery made in the mid-20th century and reanalyzed recently drew global attention. A skeleton dubbed Shanidar 1 belonged to an adult male who was blind in one eye, limped due to a leg injury, had cranial trauma, and had lost his lower molars. Yet he lived into old age. The scientific implication is clear. A severely impaired individual could not have survived alone in the wild. His longevity proves sustained care. Others must have hunted, cooked, and supported him. This wasn't instinct. It was compassion, responsibility, and social commitment. In La Chapelle-aux-Saints, France, the first site confirming deliberate Neanderthal burial, archaeologists found a grave containing a skeleton in a fixed position, free of animal scavenging. Sediment analysis revealed pollen traces, suggesting memorial rituals, or at the very least, intentional body handling. At El Cedron in Spain, the remains of at least 12 Neanderthal individuals, adults and children, were found. Genetic testing showed they were part of the same extended family. Their spatial bone layout and tool distribution reveal communal living and resource sharing. Mitochondrial DNA even indicates kinship links. Artifacts buried with the remains included finely crafted flint tools. Wear patterns and dental plaque suggest knowledge of medicinal plants like ferns or willow bark, natural sources of salicylates, the basis of aspirin. This hints at early pharmacological awareness. Studies on tool wear indicate that about 10 to 15% of Neanderthals were left-handed, comparable to modern humans. Hand dominance is linked to brain lateralization, possibly suggesting linguistic or fine motor skills. Ochre, red or yellow mineral pigment, appears at many sites. It was ground into powder and applied to skin, objects, or the deceased. Though not definitively art, ochre use implies symbolism, a vital component of abstract and cultural thinking. In Gorhan's Cave, Gibraltar, researchers uncovered a crosshatch carving on rock made by Neanderthals. Though debated, the marks are not functional but symbolic, likely serving as signs, expressions, or memory tools. At Bruniquel Cave in France, deep underground, 300 meters inside, a ring structure made of hundreds of broken stalagmites was dated to over 170,000 years ago. Created by Neanderthals, the site shows no sign of habitation or cooking. It opens the door to theories of ritual, belief, or non-material use of space. Across sites from Europe to Asia, archaeological findings show Neanderthals had social structures, caregiving behavior, symbolic use, and possibly ritual acts. These traits are absent in other primates and point to a complex cultural world, far beyond old stereotypes. There's no evidence of writing, instruments, or complex visual art. But what exists is enough to conclude. Neanderthals didn't just survive. They lived as humans do, organizing, caring, sharing, mourning, and perhaps even dreaming. Part 5. We are Neanderthal. Neanderthals are not merely a closed chapter in human evolution. They didn't entirely vanish. They left behind more than fossils. They left themselves in us. On average, every non-African person carries 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. Some East Asian populations carry up to 4%. These genes affect immunity, inflammation, fat metabolism, skin and hair structure. Biological links that still function, not just ancient leftovers. Anatomically, traits such as nasal proportions or skull thickness may reflect Neanderthal admixture. Physiologically, some immune responses and neurological traits trace back to this shared inheritance. From an evolutionary perspective, Homo sapiens are not pure. The emergence of modern humans was shaped by interbreeding, mutation, and adaptation across human branches, of which Neanderthals were a key part. But their legacy goes beyond DNA. It lives in behavior. Archaeology shows that Neanderthals cared for the sick, buried their dead, used tools, mastered fire, and may have used symbols. These behaviors didn't vanish, they continued within Homo sapiens cultures. Community, group protection, resource sharing, these ideals existed among Neanderthals first. Traits we consider modern, like cooperative hunting, role division, or child education, were present in Neanderthal societies even before Homo sapiens reached Europe. This raises a profound question: where is the line between them and us? Anthropologists today agree. There is no clear boundary. Instead, there is a continuum of evolution, where human species met, influenced each other, and sometimes coexisted in the same geographic space for millennia. The fact that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens produced fertile offspring is the clearest evidence of our biological closeness. Symbolically, Neanderthals were once excluded from humanity's narrative. Today, they are returning, not as footnotes, but as an inseparable part of our shared journey. As this first episode concludes, one message stands firm. Neanderthals were not evolutionary failures. They weren't erased by Homo sapiens' superiority. The causes of their decline and eventual integration will be explored in upcoming episodes. But what we know now is this: a part of them never disappeared. We are the result of countless generations of natural selection, interspecies unions, and cultural exchange. Neanderthals are one link in that chain, and by understanding them, we understand ourselves. In future episodes, this series will explore how Neanderthals lived and raised their children, survival strategies during the Ice Age, evidence of Neanderthal art, rituals, and possible language, the decline and blending of Neanderthals into Homo sapiens. Each episode will deepen our understanding, not just of Neanderthals, but of humanity itself. This series is not only about the past, it's about the origins of our present, how we became human, not alone, but through merging, sharing, and remembering. We are not just Homo sapiens, we are Neanderthal.